Hello and welcome to a GameMaker tutorial. This is the GameMaker IDE and today we are going to familiarize ourselves with it. First, the bar here is a very important bar to learn. These are the basic file functions: new, load, save. This is building an executable, so basically that means exporting your game so you can distribute it, let other people install it. These are debug functions. This runs the game without debug functionality, this runs it with debug functionality, this stops it in case it's frozen, this cleans up previous data from the last launch. And here we have our resources. This is basically what we use to build our game, and all this is the same as these folders here on the left. And then we have these things over here. This is for extension packages, this is for global game data, which you can click on and you get a bunch of game settings, and right here is the help file, which you should be referring to quite a bit. The documentation of GameMaker is very well done, so in case you don't know something, just go check it out. I can almost guarantee you find what you need to know. So here we go. Here to the right, you basically don't need to worry about this. This is a target platform. You basically install GameMaker on Windows, so you don't need to change anything about this if you just want to export it to PC users. But if you want to export it somewhere else, you need to be able to pick something in here to export it to. You have Windows, Mac, HTML5, iOS, Android, Windows 8 JavaScript, a whole bunch of stuff. So let's see what all this is about. So there are a few things here. This is the game information, and these are the global game settings. Game information is just an RTF file that you can edit. There's not really a whole lot to it, and it's not at all important for your game unless you want to keep a changelog in there or something. There's also functionality to display it within the game. Right here you have macros. Macros are useful when you want to use certain values throughout your game, and then you can set them here and GameMaker will recognize them and say, yes, that's right, that's that value. So to the left here are your resources, to the top are your tools, at the bottom here are your compile messages, and here in the center you'll get a whole lot of screens that you can do stuff with. So to start off, we're going to make a sprite. So this is what your sprite window looks like. So here you can enter a sprite name. That'll be useful later. Let's just call it test for now. But what's important about the name is that names are not unique per resource type. They should be unique per project. So basically, if you have another resource that you also name test, even if it's one of these or one of these, you can't name it test. You have to name it something different. So what you should really do is you should give it a suffix or a prefix to indicate that it's a sprite. Most people use SPR underscore. So you can click OK and you see that the changes are passed into the resource tree here. So there are a few things you can do. You can load a sprite, you can edit a sprite. For loading a sprite you already need to have a file done. And otherwise you create the sprite within GameMaker itself. So now we're in the image editor for GameMaker, and we can basically do something like this, and we have a sprite, easy as that. Let's make it red. There we go. Now there are a few other things we can do here. We can enable precise collision checking, meaning that the edges are transparent here. If something were to pass through the corner, it would normally see it as a collision because the corner is collided with. But since it's transparent, precise collision checking says, no, that's not a collision. That's how that works. Separate collision masks only if you have an animation, and I would recommend turning this off for most purposes. Otherwise, you may have differences in collision frame by frame, which is not really useful in most cases. Then we have the origin. That's where the thing is drawn, so you can center it. That means that when you place this at a coordinate, this is the coordinate that it is drawn at. So now we can use this. We can make an object, for example, and we can name it object test. Now we have a sprite here. We can select sprite test, and that's basically our object. We don't really have to do anything else with it. The object exists now. We can do anything with it we want. Just now we don't do particularly much because the events and the actions are both empty, as you can see. There's one extra thing we need to do, and that's create a room, which is over here. A room is basically the game window. So as you can see, I can zoom out here. This is the game window. We can make it a little bit smaller. We can zoom in again. We have our ball here. We can place it anywhere on this grid. We can also turn the grid off if that bothers us. We can also use shortcuts such as Alt to place it wherever we like without snapping to the grid. We can zoom in, we can zoom out. This is basically your level editor. So now we should have a field with 3 balls. Let's check if that works out. There we go, there it is. Simple as that. But that's not really what you want in most games. So what you can do in the object properties over here is you can make events and actions. Events is when something happens, and that thing that happens tells the object, hey, now's your time to act. There are several things here, such as create, that's when the object is first put into the world. There's mouse, that's when the mouse does something. Destroy, when the object is destroyed. Other, some miscellaneous stuff. Alarm, that's when a timer goes off. Draw, that's when the object is drawn. Step is executed every time the game is updated. Key press, key release, keyboard, all has to do with the keyboard. Collision means when it touches something else. And asynchronous, that works with multiplayer and stuff. So for now, let's go with step. Say we want to move it somewhere. So now we go do this. Jump to position. So this is very important. We have XY coordinates. That basically represents the position of our object in the room. The position of our object in the room can be changed. If the settings stay the same, it'll go to position 0, 0 every time. That's the top left. So what happens is that it goes to the top left all the time. We don't want that. We don't want our object to just go somewhere. So what we can do is we can check the relative box. That means that we don't just go to 0, 0. That means we go to 0, 0 from our current position. Right here. We stay at the same place. If I make this larger, we go to the right. If I make it smaller, we go to the left. So let's say we want to go to the left. Let's say -1. I can now run the game. Here we go. We go to the left. Not bad. For now, I will explain one more thing, and that's how to do user input. Most basic way is the keyboard. What you want to do with the keyboard is, let's say, whenever we press left, we want to jump to the left. So let's put this to relative, and let's put this to -5. So now when we run the game, you can see that whenever I press left, the ball jumps to the left a little bit every step. If we want to do that again, for another direction, we can click duplicate event, and we can say right, and instead of -5, we now make it 5, also relative. And now our ball can move to the left and to the right. That's how easy it is to make games in GameMaker. I'll hopefully see you next time for another tutorial which will explain how sounds and backgrounds work, as well as fonts.